Hey guys, Dr. Justin Marcagiani here. Today we're going to be chatting with Evan Brand. We're going to be talking about, is your diet making you tired? We talk about fatigue with thyroid and adrenals and hormonal imbalances. Obviously, your diet plays a role in that, but is your diet making you tired? We're going to dive into the actual biochemistry on what's happening under the hood and tell you what to do about it. Evan, my man, how are we doing, brother?
Oh, doing great, man. Good to see you today. And this is a fun topic because chronic fatigue is a big problem for a lot of people. And, it's very easy to just sit on your couch and just scroll on your phone and just let the days go by. And you're not actually using your physical body. There's so many. I mean, just this morning, I went on a great bike ride with some friends, and it's so good to get your blood pumping. But so many people, unfortunately, have a combination of toxins, infections, nutrient deficiencies, hormone imbalances, neurotransmitter problems, and poor nutritional status, leading to they don't have the energy to go lift weights, to go ride a bike. And so hopefully today we'll give people some takeaways that they can do to implement and they can have more oomph.
100%. Big picture out of the gate, right? We look at physiology. There's lots of different things that are happening with hormones, with insulin resistance, with a lack of nutrition coming in that impacts the mitochondria, maybe anemias, right? Especially with females and excessive menstruation or hormone issues, they can have a lot of anemias, and that can drive more fatigue too. And if you're vegan or vegetarian, that's going to be the absolute, worst way to get your energy up because a lot of times you're missing key B vitamins and key essential fatty acids, vitamin A, and of course very low in heme-based iron, which is the major iron that increases ferritin 95%. And so all these things play a big role. Now, the first premise we look at is inflammation, right? The more your body is inflamed, the harder it will be to generate energy. Let's talk about why. What is inflammation? So my general summary is inflammation is nothing more than your body breaking down faster than it's building up. So if I go to the gym and I do some bicep curls, I create a little bit of inflammation, but I eat good, I sleep good, I rest good, I take supplements, and then my muscle comes back a little bit stronger the next day. Maybe I'm a little bit sore, but I get a little bit stronger over time. Inflammation is now my muscles get weaker over time. My skin loses collagen over time. My hair starts to thin over time. My energy drops over time because your body's breaking down faster. Now, there's a lot of stuff happening at the cellular level with cytokines and interleukins and inflammation and immune balance. And then, of course, inflammatory foods tend to be very nutrient poor. So the more inflamed you get, you tend to be eating more processed foods that create leaky gut permeability. We know there's a lack of nutrition coming in. There's probably a lot of that food is genetically modified. So you get a lot of glyphosate and Roundup coming in. So your toxic load also goes up. And so there's a lot of things that when your food's inflammatory, you also get low nutrition. You also get more hormones, more antibiotics, more glyphosate, which increases more leaky gut permeability. And that creates more immune burden. And then one step down from there, we start to generate dysbiosis, and the gut starts to go out of balance, more bad bacteria than good. Citrobacter, Proteus, Klebsiella, Pseudomonas, Morganella, extra toxic E. coli, H. pylori, Candida, and these things are going to activate the immune system. And when the immune system is activated, you're going to be tired. Why? Think about it. When you get sick, what's the first thing that happens? Your body says, oh, you're tired. Sit down on the couch, relax, rest. Because when your immune system is stressed, it sucks energy out of you. You're doing that with your food, with your gut permeability, and then God forbid you add some mold into the mix, forget about it. So I know I just had a lot. Go ahead, Evan.
No, well said. Well said. Well, I think we should just throw organic acids testing into this too, because it's really, really important to look at an oat test. So if you could pull this up on screen, let's show people just a little bit of a sample here. This is a sample report here of an organic acids test. And what you hit on, a lot of what you hit on is happening right here in the Krebs cycle. And this is why a lot of people are tired. Now, this Krebs cycle, as you mentioned, the energy production is going to get screwed up when you have dysbiosis. So even if it's just candida alone, you can see in this little spinny wheel here, you're going to have an issue of reduction in output of ATP simply by having a candida overgrowth. Now, if you're just eating nutrient poor diet, you have excess sugar, you have excess processed foods, and you're feeding the yeast, you can literally be tired because of the Coca-Cola that is feeding your yeast problem.
Yeah, so explain that one more time. So we go and we look here. I'm just trying to zoom in myself. So if we go look at the candida,
Yeah, see,
so
they're
we have the
saying
candida in the middle. Yep. And so go ahead, repeat that one more time. I want to make sure everyone gets it at home.
so several mechanisms happen. One is that candida is going to produce acetaldehyde,
Yep.
Also, bacteria are going to produce endotoxins, lipopolysaccharides, which are going to disrupt the absorption of your foods and therefore your amino acids that get created from the breakdown of your foods. Those amino acids help to fuel your Krebs cycle. This
Hmm.
all falls apart if you have toxic metals, if you have chemicals, if you have candida, if you have bacteria, if you have mold. They don't put mold on here, but I think they should. What they show here is heavy metals, non-metal toxic chemicals. They show that as an inhibitor of this wheel, and this wheel is just spitting off ATP. They also show this too. Maybe we should hit this graphic down here about neurotransmitters and how this goes wrong as well.
So, what's the major mechanism of how the candida is causing fatigue? So, from what I understand, is candida produces acetaldehyde that can create fatigue. It also can eat up a lot of B vitamins, right? So then you have less B vitamins in that Krebs cycle to kind of move everything around. So B vitamins are really important. Maybe candida can impact digestion. So maybe you make less hydrochloric acid. You don't break down the proteins, and those proteins are important to run that Krebs cycle. What other mechanisms?
It could be a stretch here, but I mean, what they're showing here visually is just showing the excess oxalate production. So it'd be interesting to look up like fatigue oxalates. I wonder if there's a
Mm,
link there, but
mhm.
that's what they're showing here is the spitting off of this excess oxalates right here in the center of the wheel.
Well, I know people that have excess oxalates are also very prone to kidney stones, but also joint pain. And if you have joint pain, do you tend to have a lot of energy? No, you're going to be sedentary because it hurts to move. And you very rarely find someone who's in pain but has is energy. It's a very, very rare combination.
Okay, check this out. So I just did a quick search here. Oxalates, fatigue. Oxalates affect mitochondrial function,
Yes,
causing fatigue and muscle soreness, creating unnecessary oxidative stress, free radicals, and inflammation. So
100%.
there's the mechanism. There is some sort of mitochondrial damage. Look, let me pull this up for you real quick. And maybe your average person doesn't care to get this geeky, but you and I, we like to at least have a couple papers showing and backing up what we're
Mm.
saying here. This was in a redox biology journal here, 2018. Oxalate induces mitochondrial dysfunction and disrupts redox homeostasis. So that's one just quick paper I pulled up here. And let's see what they're saying here.
And how it works for us too, just people at home, is we have observations that we notice clinically, right? You may call this anecdotal, and then we go into the literature and we say, hey, there's a mechanism here. Is there anything in the literature that supports this? And it's like, I'll be damned. Here it is. We find it, right? And so that's kind of how we look at it. We just say, all right, is there an example of this happening with our patients? And then we kind of work backwards and say, well, what does the literature say about this? Are people already uncovering a link? Because for us, like, we're never going to get a double blind placebo controlled trial looking at any of these things, right? Functional medicine doesn't involve patentable drugs that make billions of dollars. It just doesn't. And the supplement industry is something that's saturated, and most supplements are junk out there. So all we can really offer to patients is clinical experience, feedback, diet, lifestyle changes, and knowing what works best, and then really making sure if we recommend supplements, we're addressing things with the highest quality products to address it. And we're addressing the barriers. We're addressing the mold, the bugs. And there's not a multi-billion-dollar industry for people to make tons of money off it. It's not there. And so that's why you don't see more of this coming in the mainstream. Like why is my doc telling me? Well, it's just there's not money made on it at a
Yeah.
massive global scale.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. Now, let's just throw some numbers out, just kind of rough numbers of what we've seen clinically. I mean, we've seen probably between us both, well over 5,000 clients and
Oh
patients
yeah,
around the world now.
more than that. Yeah.
So let's just throw a number out there. What out of 10 people, or if you want to do out of 10 and out of 100, how many people out of 10, how many people out of 100 would you say have some level of dysbiosis, which could include candida as well, based on testing?
I would say upwards of 100% of people that are coming to see me. For the most part, anyone that has most people that come to see me with acute issues, they're typically gut related. And if someone has a chronic hormonal issue, once you dive in, they're like, "Oh, pooping every 2 to 3 days is a problem," or like me being really burpy or flatulence after each meal isn't a problem. So a lot of issues, they kind of I call them like they're kind of covert. People have kind of written them off as normal, but they're really not normal. And then once we talk about it, they're like, "Oh, I guess that's a problem." But most people come in, they may not think it is, but then we go through our symptom survey and go through a history and ask questions, and it's like, "Oh, that's a big deal."
Yeah, I was going to say at least 7 out of 10. 80
Mhm.
out of 100. I mean, the numbers are huge. And people may say we're biased and go, yeah, but these are people that are seeking you guys out because they have symptoms. But the average person looks and performs way worse. Just my observation out in society, the average person performs way worse than the people you and I are working with. Some of the people we're working with are athletes and pilots and like really high achievers, and they still have dysfunction. So this idea that this is a rare problem, this is not a rare problem at all.
Yeah, and the question is why? Obviously, we have a bias group. People are going to be self-selecting us because they already have some issue. Okay, that's the first thing. The second thing is people are getting exposed to antibiotics at a record level, and not just antibiotics, glyphosate slash Roundup, right, which is the major pesticide used in all farming, right, was originally patented as an antibiotic. People do not realize that. People are like, "What? It was?" And so people see. I'm going to pull it up on screen. I actually can go pull up the patent, um, and you can go see it. And that's a big deal. I'm going to pull it up here for everyone so they
And
can
I want
actually
to, I
see
want
it
to,
again.
I want to restate what you're saying in a different way. So what he's saying is that if you are eating conventional food, conventional should be marked as chemical. Okay, when you see it at the grocery store, conventional apples, conventional strawberries. Then next to it, you'll see a couple organic. Conventional means chemical, and so if you're not eating organic fruits, organic veggies, you are getting exposed to this compound.
100%. And again, people come in at different places. Some people may eat pretty well and have had a couple of antibiotic issues in the past with antibiotics for a sinus infection, a sore throat, and that can set them up. Some people, it's just a chronic low grade. I'm going to get some food in me that's not good, and that causes problems. So here's a one study right here, just so you guys can see facts and fallacies in the debate about glyphosate toxicity. And if you go right down here within this peer reviewed study, indeed, the patenting of glyphosate as an antibiotic to be used against a wide spectrum of microorganisms based solely on the effects of protozoa, not bacteria. Its effect was dependent upon right. So this is the U.S. patent 7771736. So this was originally patented as an antibiotic, and so that obviously is going to have an impact on your microbiome. And there are studies where you can go look at glyphosate and what it does to the brush border and to the microvilli. You will see a massive shortening and weakening and atrophy of the microvilli, which are in the intestines that absorb food, absorb nutrition. And so that's one mechanism. There's a lot of others. We can add in H. pylori and low stomach acid. We could add in antibiotic just because of sore throats and excessively prescribed. We could add in other types of stressors and issues and mold and toxicity. There's a lot of things. And I tell patients, you have the right to have more than one issue going on at the same time. It's okay. You can have more than one thing, and it's probably not just one thing. It's probably a bunch.
Yeah, and that's important because when you seek out a practitioner, if you're expecting them to pull some silver bullet out and they're going to just hit all your issues and fix you with one thing, it's extremely rare. I wanted to cover one other mechanism here. How does the diet create fatigue? And you covered the issue of chemicals in the food supply, antibiotics in the food supply affecting the gut bacteria. And then after that, what happens? Well, then you develop these bacterial overgrowth problems. Now, the issue with fatigue coming from a neurotransmitter perspective is also related to the gut. And what you'll see on this beautiful little graphic here on the oat test, you're going to see here that when you have excess inflammation, excess immune stress or stimulation, you're going to have elevated quinolinic acid, which is neurotoxic, and there's implications for
Mm-hmm.
Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's. Like quinolinic acid in excess is not good. So from the infection side here, you're affecting your brain, which is terrible. But then further south here, you're seeing here that different species of Clostridia are going to produce nasty organic acid toxins, which is going to mess up your natural neurotransmitter production. And this could manifest in different ways. Some people it's anxiety, some people it's depression, some people it's chronic fatigue. But when you go up north here in the oat test, we can look specifically at brain chemistry. And so so you're thinking, well, Evan, this podcast is about diet. Now you're talking about the brain. Well, what we're saying is the diet is affecting the gut and the gut's affecting the brain. And you can
Bingo.
see this right here on paper.
And part of it also is that gut barrier, that gut barrier when there's a leaky gut, right? When these tight junctions open up, there's also a correlation of different food particles like gluten or casein or lipopolysaccharide or endotoxin, also creating permeability with the BBB, the blood-brain barrier, which is nothing more than the astrocytes in the brain. They make up the BB, the blood-brain barrier, and that allows these microbes to get into the brain, and that creates brain fog. Because when the microglial cells, which are the white blood cells of the brain, they start interacting with these chemicals or compounds, you're going to have brain fog. So you have white blood cells everywhere, right? In the skin, you have the cells of Langerhans. In the brain, you have microglial cells, right? When your mast cells, when your basophils in your stomach go outside of your blood into the tissue, that becomes essentially mast cells and creates histamine. So we have immune cells everywhere, brain, gut, etc.
Yeah, there was a question here about buffalo meat, which they're probably talking about bison. American bison gets called buffalo for some reason, not technically buffalo. Yeah, bison's great. Even if you're in Africa and you're eating real buffalo, yeah, that like a water buffalo, that's great. William said here, regenerative farming is a major solution to our future of food intake and eliminating these chemicals. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The problem is some of the regenerative farms that I'm seeing like, so I mean, if you want to eat a steak, right? So between you and I both, we've got several kids. And if we're going to feed a steak to all of us, you, your wife, your kids, me, my wife, my kids, I mean, you're talking like $100 for an at-home dinner for the highest quality, regeneratively raised, organic, 100% pastured steaks from like a local farmer. So that's the hard part is how do we do this at scale where people can afford it? And we are seeing that even Walmart, congratulations to them. I'm seeing 100% grass-fed, pasture-raised, organic beef at a fair price. So I'm hoping that more people have access to these good meats.
Yeah, and when you look at, utilizing high quality pasture fed, grass fed animals, you're going to have the most amount of calories and nutrition per death, right? It's just the way it is. Half a cow, full cow can feed a whole family of six for an entire year. And the GLA fatty acids are incredibly good for the brain. Plus, you get all of the nutrients from the chlorophyll from the grass. It's going to allow a lot more beta carotene and nutrients and vitamin A and good fatty acids for the mitochondria. And also, these foods are very satiating. So it allows you to actually feel satiated, not overeat. And then one other mechanism we talked about, is your diet causing fatigue? Insulin resistance monkeys up a lot of the biochemical enzymes that are happening at a cellular level. So when you're insulin resistant, you decrease the amount of hormone sensitive lipase you make, which makes it harder for you to break down your fat into free fatty acids, a glycerol backbone, rip it off, and ketones. So you don't have the fatty acids and ketones to use for fuel. So now you're relying on sugar. The example is using fats for fuel, logs on a fire, steady burn, right? If you're a sugar burner, that's relying on twigs and gasoline and paper. Ever go camping, try relying on twigs, gasoline, and paper. That fire will be up, 20 minutes out, up, out, up, out. You will not be able to roast marshmallows, cook your hot dogs, have a fire all night keeping you warm. It'll be up and down. And so ideally, metabolically, we want to increase our hormone lead sensitive lipase, keep our insulin in check, ideally fasting below 7, and that will allow us to tap into our fatty acids, our glycerol backbone, and our ketones for fuel.
You know what's interesting? Dr. Mercola put out something like a month ago where he was changing his diet. He's talking about how much better he feels on watermelon and white rice. So now, like in his breakfast, he's adding in white rice and watermelon. He was talking about how skinny he was getting, being like almost ketogenic, like super, super low carb, and how he's feeling so much better. So I feel great on rice. I still think there's a place for it, but I'm still very, very insulin sensitive. My fasting insulin is still great, and I have no glucose problems. I have no hypoglycemia, no blood sugar instability. And a lot of that's improved since I fixed my gut. I'll say years ago when my gut was a mess, I had a lot of hypoglycemia.
Yeah, I mean, the issue with people with Dr. Mercola, if you just look at somatotyping, right, get a sense of what your somatotype is, right? Three major somatotypes. Most people are in between. Okay, you have your ectomorph. That's your ballerina. That's your basketball player. Naturally more skinny or lean. Mercola is an ectomorph, so he's naturally going to be able to generate more fuel from carbohydrates and not feel tired. Plus, the guy retired in Florida, is on the beach, walking 20,000 steps a day, exercises multiple times a day. He's not the average person stuck in a cube and sedentary, right? So you got to look at what's your somatotype and how much activity and sunlight do you have. That changes the situation. Now, then you have your mesomorph. That's going to be like your linebacker in football. That's kind of where I'm at. Like you could get big or fat if you're sedentary. You could be lean, but you're kind of this hybrid. And then you have your endomorph. That's your natural lineman. Like these people are like they just get big very easily. And so you have to look at what your somatotype is. If you're the lineman, you're going to be very insulin resistant naturally. If you're a mesomorph like me, you could go either way. And if you're the ectomorph like Mercola, then you're typically going to be able to handle carbs better over time.
Yeah, it's impossible for me. I'm an ectomorph for sure. Like it's impossible for
Yep.
me to get
Yep.
huge. At least I
Yep.
think I've never gotten huge. So far I'm not huge, but I do fine with the starch. I just want people to know, like Primarily, we're helping to stabilize blood sugar, as you mentioned, good fats, high quality meats. But I still do okay. I do okay with plantains. I do okay with white rice. I do okay with as many unlimited berries that are organic as I possibly can. And these are the foods that help to fuel you where you have stability. I've seen in my child's school when they do a beach day. You'll see all these kids doing snack time, and it's all like Annie's garbage. It's graham crackers. It's all gluten. It's cheese crackers. It's dairy. It's goldfish. And these are the kids that when they get back to school from the beach day, they all pass out. These kids are
Yep.
exhausted. They're so nutrient deficient.
Yep, it's a big deal, and it's hard because parents project all their insecurities upon their kids in regards to diet. It's like, oh well, my kid can't have a great childhood unless he eats crap every single meal of the day. It's like, well, with my kids, we try to like have some healthier treats, and we say, hey, if you eat these really good foods for breakfast and lunch and have your protein, then we're going to dangle in like some unreal dark chocolate or give them some nice things that are going to taste good, feel great, but not make them feel or act, off the wall, if you will. So
Yeah, I
I
mean,
get that. That makes sense.
think about all the teachers that are dealing with 30 children in a classroom. These kids are being fed high processed carbohydrate cereal in the morning. Their blood sugar is going to crash by 10 a.m. Then they're irritable. Then they're not paying attention. So then the teacher says, oh, they have ADD, or they send a letter home to the parents. Hey, your kid can't focus in school. So think about the young people as well that can be influenced by these dietary choices and
Yep.
how this impacts our
Yep.
productivity, how this impacts pilots that are having blood sugar crashes while flying a fighter jet. Like that's not
Yep.
good. So
Yep.
this is important for all walks of life, wherever you're at
Yep.
professionally.
And I got a podcast coming up here with Dr. Nick Cool. He's in the waiting room. I can see him there. And we're going to be chatting about the vagus nerve. And when it comes to diet and lifestyle and inflammation, the more inflamed you are, the more it activates the sympathetic nervous system, which automatically decreases the parasympathetic and the vagus nerve. And so everything we do when we reduce inflammation, we work on healthy diet, healthy lifestyle, we're allowing that parasympathetic tone to come back up. Good, healthy vagus nerve stimulation, which allows for better healing and better recovery. So it really starts with that. With all these things. And as a byproduct, your nervous system and healing and regeneration is going to be a natural byproduct of that.
Perfect transition. Well, I'm going to let you get to it. So we'll wrap this one up here. Look forward to hearing about the Vegas Nerve podcast. So if you all need to reach out clinically, you can do so at justinhealth.com. That's Dr. J, justinhealth.com. Consults are available worldwide. Logistically, we help you with lab testing. We can get this to your home. You send it back to the lab. You can do consultations via telemedicine. Myself, Evan Brand at evanbrand.com. We'll be happy to help you all.
Yeah, and just try to take away one bit of information. I know there's a lot of stuff. It's easy to get overwhelming. Once you've done that and you're ready for the next step, we are here for you all worldwide.
All
All right,
right.
you guys
Take
have an
care.
awesome day. Evan, another great chat, my friend. We'll talk
All
soon.
right. See ya. Bye.
All right, bye.